All right, so I've got the record button turned on, and I guess I should have given you a little bit about my background. I did work in legal for about 20 years, right? 13 as litigation secretary, 7 years as a law firm administrator. So, you know, I know what you guys go through on a daily basis when you are preparing documents. So I've been lucky enough to use some of my background, which has helped me come up with these webinars. So with that being said, track changes. There is a handout that's attached. If you go to the panel to go to webinar panel, you'll see handouts, and there is a handout that you can all download. So track changes, I'm assuming most of you know what track changes is. It's basically any change, edit, deletion, formatting you make to a document. You can track all of those changes, and then someone else can look at the changes and they can see the changes that you've made. So all of the track changes tools are on the review ribbon up here at the top. And they're in a tracking group and changes group. And we are also going to talk about compare. So in the tracking group here, I'll just kind of highlight some of the settings you can do, and then we're going to get specific and show you what some of these different settings do as I work throughout this document. But right away, I can tell I have track changes on because it's highlighted here on the left. If I turn it off, it's not highlighted, so track changes is turned off. But for this document, I'm going to keep it on. Probably the biggest complaint or mystery a lot of you have about track changes is they say they can't see the changes that have been made, especially if you have upgraded your version of Microsoft and Word and Office products were installed by default. So by default, when you open a document that contains tracked changes, the default is what's called simple markup. And simple markup simply is, it's got the little red line in the left margin here, just to bring your eye to the attention that something changed within that paragraph, but it doesn't show the specific changes. Now that's the default. So I can't tell you how many support calls I get with someone not being able to see their changes tracked. And it's really, to fix that issue, it's as simple as changing it from simple markup to all markup. So again, in the tracking group up here at the top, by default it shows as simple markup. Just click the drop down and show all markup, and then you can start seeing your markups, okay? So that's the first thing to get past, is changing it to all markup. So some of the other settings, you can choose what you want to show, what type of markup you want to show in your document, and we'll get a little more specific into some of these as we go through. And you can also choose whether to have a reviewing pane turned on or not. So take some time and kind of look around some of these options that you have up here. And we'll also, in just a little while, get into some of the more advanced options of track changes. So we're going to be working with the tracking tools here, and then when we get into accepting or rejecting the changes, we're going to get into the changes group. At the end, when I talk about comparing and combining, we're going to go into this compare and combine group. All right, so to actually start track changes, I'm just going to open another blank document that does not have track changes turned on. So if you have a document that you've created and you want to make some changes to it and you want to track, super simple. Just click on your review tab up here, and then just turn on track changes. You can single click, and as you can see, it's turned on, or there is a shortcut key, and this is listed in the actual handout, that it's Control-Shift-E. So Control-Shift-E turns track changes off, and Control-Shift-E turns it back on. And then you'll notice as soon as you start adding text or deleting something, it's going to start tracking all of those changes. So that's simple enough to turn it on. I'm going to go back to my other document where we've actually have some more changes that have already been tracked, right? We're going to work with this one as I go through, helping you show the different views and what you're going to track. So as I mentioned, let's go ahead and talk about display for review. So notice as I just rest my cursor, it says that this is display for review. Choose how you'd like to see changes in your document. Simple markup, you don't see the actual changes. They're incorporated in here, and it just gives you this red line off to the left indicating a change has been made within where that area is. All markup shows everything. This is my preferred way to view track changes. I do like to see all markup. Another, you can look at no markup, and no markup shows you the document as if all the changes that were made have been accepted. So this is what it would look like once the changes have been accepted. Original will show you your original document without any of the changes that were made. So it's your original before changes have been made, or it could be your document with all changes rejected, right? So that's what original is. So again, my preferred view or display is all markup when I'm working in track changes. I'm going to give you another great tip here. So, you know, if you were in original or markup view, right? If I go to no markup, but it's accepting all the changes, you know, visually looking at my document here, I may not know that track changes is even turned on. And if I'm on a different ribbon up here, if I get off of my reviewing ribbon, again, this just looks like a normal document, right? So a good visual for me to know, to tell me if I have track changes on or not, is I like an indication in my status bar. So way down here at the bottom, you know, you can see that I'm in my status bar, I'm showing what sections I'm in, what page number I'm on, and things like that. If you just right-click somewhere in the blank area of your status bar, then I would recommend that you also turn on right here track changes. And you're not turning track changes on, it's just telling you the status, which is telling me right now track changes is on. Even though I don't see any of them, I can look down here in my status bar, and it's a really good notification to me that I do have track changes on. And again, that's if you're in a display like no markup. Obviously, if you're in all markup, you can still have this all markup and have track changes turned off. So again, I like to add it to my status bar down there. The other choices you have would be what you want to show as a markup, right? So right now, what I'm showing is all my deletions are showing in a balloon over here on the right, as well as my formatting is showing in a balloon. And then all my insertions are showing in line. And to set that, again, if I click on the Show Markup drop-down, so if I don't want to see formatting, I can just uncheck it. But I do like to see formatting. By default, it's set as we're looking at it, right? But I do hear from a lot of people they don't like the balloons. So if I rest my cursor on the balloons, do you see how what's checked is Show Revisions in Balloons? I also have a choice, Show All Revisions in Line, or Show Only Comments and Formatting in Balloons. So I would say probably the most common are going to be these two. So Show All Revisions in Line, it gets rid of your balloons entirely, and it shows me all the revisions in line. But I may not see, I don't really have an indication if formatting was changed. So what you may want to do for balloons is say Show Only Comments and Formatting in Balloons. So here it's telling me that, I formatted the font. I put it to italics, and then I also changed the left and right indent. So in my balloons, I'm seeing formatting only, but I see all my deletions and all my insertions in line. So again, that's under balloons. And then specific people. So this particular document has been modified by two different people, me and my coworker, Michael Hafford. So if I scroll down to the bottom, do you see how these changes here were Michael's because they're in a different color? If I come back to balloons and I say show revisions in balloons, then I can see the name that Michael actually added this additional text, and he's actually in a different color. So I don't know that it's Michael if I have my balloons turned off. That's the only downside to turning off your balloons. And let's see if I go to, even if I go to comments and formatting, I don't know. I can rest my cursor on it and see who the author was that made this insertion and deletion. Just by resting my cursor on it, I can see. But if I want it off in a balloon, I do need to show revisions in balloons to see the name off to the right. All right, so again, that's how you can review specific people. If I only wanted to see revisions I made and I uncheck Michael, then it's going to accept his revision. It's going to show his revision as if it's accepted, right? It's not in blue, but it only shows my revisions being tracked. So that's how the specific and choosing which reviewer you're going to look at. Now you also have some tracked changes options. If I open this options dialog, track changes options right here in the bottom right, then here's some options that we can set. So again, we can indicate what we want to show is being tracked: comments, ink, insertions, and deletions. Balloons and all markup show. We can say revisions, nothing, or comments and formattings. That's the same that the choices we have in show markup. But what is new is this advanced options right here. So because I have two authors in this document, remember me and Michael, my by author is showing red and blue. If I were the only one who had made changes in this document, it would say by author and it would only show one color because I only had one author in here. So once you get a second author editing the same document, the colors will start changing for that author. Now you can set your own colors if you want, right? You can change how these track changes appear. So insertions have an underline, deletions have a strike through. These are all the default settings. I tend not to change any of this, but you certainly can if you feel that you need to. You can indicate, do you want to track moves, meaning you've moved text throughout your document. Do you want to track formatting? If you don't want to track formatting, you can just uncheck that. And then show lines connecting to the text. So what that is really, it's simply, do you see how this like format font changed, how that dotted line goes to the beginning of the text? If I turn that off, you just don't get that dotted line. That's all that is. Show lines connecting to the text. Again, I keep all of these options as we're seeing. So I tend not to change this. But again, if you feel you need to, you absolutely can. All right. Another thing, you can kind of get a summary, or you can review your changes using a reviewing pane. And that's this other option up here, review pane. So you can show it down at the bottom, or vertical will open it up over here on the left. And it just allows you another way to see your changes. And up here at the top where it says 7 revisions, you can get a little summary of those by clicking on the caret. And so I can see in this document I have 2 insertions, 3 deletions, and 2 formatting changes. And you can see more information here. So, you know, if you have a lot of deletions and you're showing deletions in the balloon and it's super long, you can see more of the text in this reviewing pane. So again, this just kind of gives you a quick little summary of some of the revisions made. And to close that reviewing pane, just click on the X and it closes it out. Another thing you can do with track changes is you can lock it so that if you send it to somebody, they cannot turn track changes off. So if you send it to someone outside your office and you've asked them, hey, you know, add your text and send it back to me, they can't turn it off, add text, and turn it on and have changes tracked. You will lock it so that anything they do to the document gets tracked. And to lock it, it's up here on the Track Changes button. Just click the drop down and go to Lock Tracking, and you can put a password in there. And then the only way track changes can be turned off is by clicking the lock training and entering the correct password. So that's another great option if you feel you need to lock the document so track changes cannot be turned off. Another tip, if you print, right, back in the day when you would print a document that contains track changes, you would get these options over here on what you wanted to include in your print. Now, it's simply whatever you see on your screen is what's going to print. So if you want to print the document with your track changes and balloons, just view your document that way and then go to print. If you only want to see a simple markup and print it like this, then just get it in that view. Then when you go to print, let's try this again. All right, simple markup, file, print. This is not changed over. Let me close this document and open it again. That should have changed. All right, simple, file, print. All right, I'm going to have to look into this because when I did this earlier, this was not printing. Let's see. This should show. Oh, I know what it is. If I come to review, show markup, I want to show revisions in line. And now if I go to print, there we go. Show revisions in line, go to print, then it gets rid of my balloons when I want to actually print. All right, another super great tool, which I cannot recommend enough. Again, if you show a document in no markup or original, visually, you may not even know track changes is turned on in this document. So let's see if you end up emailing this to a client and you don't even realize track changes is on. You can actually change a setting in your computer to warn you before printing, saving, or sending a file that contains track changes or comments. So the way you're going to do that is we're going to go through File, and then we're going to come down, way down here to Options, and we're going to go to Trust Center, okay, because this has to do with the Trust Center. And then over here on the right, and again, all this is in the actual handout, we'll click on Trust Center Settings, and we're going to come down to Privacy Options, and it's this one, Document Specific Settings. Warn before printing, saving, or sending a file that contains track changes. I definitely want to have that turned on. Another option you may want is always display track changes when you open a document containing them. So that is right here, make hidden markup visible when opening or saving. So that's another option that you may want to have turned on. All right, and then once I set that warn before, I'm going to say okay, and now I'm going to say okay. Now, if I do a file save as, I'm going to save this as a different document. Do you see how I get a warning? The document being saved contains track changes. Do you want to continue with the save? Then I can say okay, and I'm just going to type the word new in front of it, and now I'm going to save it. Same thing if I go to email this document. So I have this document open. If I happen to go File, Share, Email, Send as an attachment, do you see the document being sent contains track changes? Continue with the send. So again, I think this is crucial, and you should definitely, and your company's IT department could probably set that, deploy that setting to everyone in your firm via a group policy. So if that's something you're interested in, I would recommend that. All right, I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to actually send it. All right, so I'm going to close out of this one, and let me get back into my other document. All right, so I'm going to go back to my review, and I'm just going to show all my markups. So the next thing is accepting and rejecting your changes, right? So you've made these changes. Now, if you want to accept or reject them, you can go step through each change, right? And that's going to be part of this change group over here. So if I click the drop down for accept, I can go accept and move to next. It would say accept this change if my cursor were actually on a change. So if I put my cursor in this paragraph, notice how accept this change becomes highlighted. So I can accept this and move on to next, or I could even say accept all changes, and I could even say accept all changes and stop tracking. So I'll go ahead and say accept and move on to next, and then accept and move on to next. And then if I don't want to keep clicking this accept and move on, then I can just click my next or previous here. So I can say accept and go through them, and then when I find one I do want to accept, I can click on accept. Or if there's one that I want to reject, right, I can say reject that change. So again, that's how you can accept or reject changes in your document. And I see I've still got some more in here. So for the rest of these, I can say accept all. So even though I've accepted all changes, note track changes is still turned on. So if you're ready to put this document in final, you're going to want to turn track changes off, right? And to turn it off, you can simply click on the track changes button or use that shortcut key that I talked about earlier. And again, notice down here in my status bar that it's now telling me track changes is turned off. So I can be assured that it has been turned off. So that's track changes in a nutshell. I'm going to go ahead and close that document. I'm not going to save my changes because I didn't really want to accept all of those. Let's now talk about comparing documents. So the compare button here, compare, and the difference between the compare and combine really has to do with the two documents you're starting with. So comparing two files would be comparing two files that do not have track changes turned on, right? You've got one, you have the original version of a document and then a revised version, but track changes is not turned on. You just want to compare the two documents. Combine has to do with if you have a document and it's been through track changes, let's say one that your attorney has done, and then he sent that same document to the client, and the client made his own changes. So the attorney has a version of the document with his changes tracked, and the client has a version of the document with the client's changes tracked. So they're the same document, but with different revisions and different tracked changes. So you would want to combine both of those documents into one to see all of the changes. So we'll go through this so it makes a little more sense to you. So let's go ahead and compare. So the first thing, original documents. If I click the drop down, it does start giving me a list of documents maybe that I've been working on, or you can browse out by clicking the little folders. I actually have two documents, my documents for comparing. So I'm going to take document 1 for comparison, and I'm going to compare it to, I'm going to browse out and find my document 2. So I'm going to compare 1 to 2. Now, when you open this dialog box by default, it's a smaller dialog box. If you click on the more, it just gives you more options. It shows you the options you have for the comparison. So you've got some comparison settings here. So if you do want it to compare everything, including moves and comments and formats, everything, you can keep that. And this is the default setting, by the way. I tend to just keep it at the default. And then show changes, I like it at the word level and new document. This is the default as well. So I don't change anything in these options, but I just wanted to show you how to get to it. And you can swap documents, by the way, if you need to here. So from here, I'm just going to say, okay. So it's going to open a new document, and what we're looking at here on the left is that reviewing pane, right? We saw that earlier, so it gives me a summary of the insertions and deletions. In the middle is my compared document. So notice how up here at the top it says compare result to. So compare documents in the middle. Now, you know, your same display, you can set that here as well. So I have all markup, but you can also show simple markup. So you've got those same track changes settings as far as the markup showing here. And then over on the right, on the top, this is my original document. On the bottom is my revised document. So it just shows you that. And then truly, you can save this compared result. File, save as, and I'll go to my same. Oh, notice here, document being saved has track changes. Thank you for telling me that. And I'm going to go and put it in my track changes folder for comparing, and I'm going to call it my compared results. And then, you know, I can close the original and I can close the revised simply by clicking the X over here and closing them, or I can also close them by I can also close them under the compare button here and saying show source documents. I can hide them, right? So now I truly just have my compared documents, and then I can accept or reject these changes here. So I can go through and I can just say accept all. And I didn't have, track changes wasn't really turned on. It was just showing changes being tracked because I compared the two. So now I have my compared results, and you would name it whatever you would want to name it. So that's the compare documents. I'm going to go ahead and close and save that. So let's talk about combining documents. So in my combine, actually, let me go back to my documents. If we look at my documents for combining, do you notice how I have track changes turned on? So that's my document 1 with track changes. Here's my document 2 with track changes, and it's got a different set of changes to the same document, right? So these are the two I'm going to combine. So review, tab, compare, combine. And again, same thing, we're going to browse out, we're going to find. This time I'm going to find my 2 documents for combining. I'm going to combine my track changes 1 with my track changes 2. I don't need to change any of these, and I'm going to say OK. So it's going to look very similar, and notice how, because when we were comparing documents, I had turned off my source document, so it is kind of a toggle. If I go ahead and say show both, then it looks the way it does when we started our earlier compare, right? So you can turn that show source documents off or on. So in the middle is my combined document, right? Here's my original where it's got some changes, and here's my revised document. So here in the middle, it's combining the changes from both of those documents. And again, I'm viewing it, I'm displaying it with all markup. And notice how up here at the top, it's saying combine result. So if I did in fact want to save this document, I can name it whatever, makes sense to you, or I could name it as my combine result, and I can either accept or reject my changes. Easy enough there. Now, you do have the capability of comparing, I should say, a Word document to a PDF, but I'll be honest with you, it's messy, right? And so let's just go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what that looks like. So in my documents for comparing, I'm going to compare my document 1 to my document 2 PDF. And what ends up happening, I'm just going to open up my document 1, is this particular document, I have a whole bunch of styles in it in my Word document. So when you compare it to a PDF, the program takes that PDF and puts it into an editable Word document, so it kind of converts it back to Word. And when you take a PDF and you convert it back to Word, it doesn't have all those same styles that is probably in your original Word document. So when you go to compare the two, part of the revisions that are going to get tracked are all these styles. So I'll just show you what it looks like so it makes a little more sense. So I'm on my review ribbon. I'm going to compare 2 documents. I am going to go to my documents for comparing. I'm going to take my document 1, Word document, and then I'm going to take my PDF, right? And then you do get this warning, and it's telling you that Word is going to convert your PDF to an editable Word document. This may take a while. It depends on how long your document. It's going to be very quick on mine because it's 1 page. The resulting Word document will be optimized to allow you to edit the text. So it might not look exactly like the original PDF, especially if the original contains a lot of graphics. All right, so let's say OK. And then let's say OK, let's compare the two. So here you go. Do you see all these styles, author definition style? So these are a lot of the styles that I had in my original Word document, but these styles were not in that PDF because when the PDF goes back to Word, it's just everything is normal style. So it takes a lot of these styles and it tries, see how it says formatting 41 revisions? So it just gets a little messy. An option you could do, but it's still not going to be super clean, is, again, reviewing. Let me go back to my compare. We're going to compare one to my PDF. Now, what you could do is right here in the comparison, I could uncheck formatting so that I'm not going to see all those styles. However, if you really did indent a particular paragraph, if there was an indented paragraph in the PDF and it wasn't in the Word, then it wouldn't show that. So that's the downside to turning formatting off. But with formatting off, do you see how I don't see a lot of those styles that it was showing? Comparing formatting is 0 now because I turned that off. So that's the downside to comparing a Word document to an actual PDF. All right, so with that being said, I am done with the track changes and comparison for you. So please start sending me your questions. I do see I've got some questions already, which I will look at in just a second. But I wanted to just do a quick little 1-minute demo of a small portion of our template and macro package. So our templates and macros get installed. It's an add-in into Word. So you get 3 new ribbons up here: General, Litigation, and Formatting. I'm going to demo a litigation macro. So I'm going to open up one of my Superior Court pleading templates. Oops, I guess I should go to View, Print Layout. I'm not going to fill all this in. That's not the demo I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how quickly you can add boilerplate text, and in this instance, affirmative defenses to a pleading. So on my litigation ribbon here, Insert, I'm going to go to Affirmative Defenses, and then I can choose, I could say defendants are going to be plural, so I'll say Tom Jones and Bob Smith. I can set the pronoun for they, right? And then complaining party will say is plaintiff and a she. So this sets the pronouns for the text that's going to get entered. So we have a bunch of boilerplate affirmative defenses. We have tort, breach of contract, insurance, employment, miscellaneous. So I'm just going to take some of the ones from breach of contract, and you would click on the ones that you want to insert into your actual document. And I'm just randomly clicking things. And you can even click some from another tab if you wanted. I'll just go employment. When you're done selecting the affirmative defenses, and down here at the bottom, you click OK, Insert Affirmative Defenses. So it's going to take the ones I selected and it's going to format them and insert them into my actual pleading. And you can see that my affirmative defenses is actually a heading style, and it is automatically numbered. So if I happen to delete one, if I need to delete one, they will renumber. So again, we've got a bunch of boilerplate affirmative defenses that can be customized for the language that a particular client uses. So just a super quick way to deal with affirmative defenses. All right. Told you it would be quick. I'm not going to save that. I am now going to get to my questions. Oh, there's only a couple here. Joan, what does ink mean in the track changes option? Great question. Let's take a look at that. Let's go back. Document with. Let's go to my review. Let's go to my tracking options. And let's turn ink off and let's see what it does. Oh, hide ink. Let's see if I rest my cursor. Hide all of the ink in your doc. That's, you know what? I can't say I've used that. So that's a great question, Joan. That's something I can do a little research on and then kind of email the answer to everybody once I look into that, but it's something I have not personally done. So you stumped me, not sure. All right, another question. Can you have more than 2 authors when tracking? Connie, yes, but you would truly send it to another person, just like I did here, right? So in this particular document, I have two authors in here, me and Michael Hafford. So I made changes to this document. I sent it to Michael and said, hey, Michael, will you make your changes to this document and send it back to me? So when he sent it back to me, his changes came in a different color. He's in blue. And then when I click on the reviewers, it shows two authors. So I hope that answered that question. Any other questions? Oh, here we go. All right, Anthony. When you are comparing documents and have two documents open, is there a way to see what type of document each is, PDF or Word? Well, remember, Anthony, that if I'm comparing a Word document to a PDF, it takes that PDF and it converts it to Word. So you truly are comparing two Word documents. So that's what you're seeing when you do that comparison. So I guess you would just need to, I think you would just need to make note of which was your original and which was your replacement. I know with third-party programs like CompareDocs or Workshare, it's much easier to compare a Word document to a PDF, but since Word takes both of those and takes the PDF and converts it into a Word, then looking at it, yes, I was just going to recommend that. Anthony, he just said, maybe save the file with the DOC type and name. Yes, you could do that. So you would say, meaning, I could say document 2 for comparison, and I can actually say put PDF in the actual name, not just the extension. Up to how many authors can you have when tracking? Is there a limit? Great question. I have not heard of a limit, but I can't say that I've researched that to know that for sure. So that's something, limit of authors in a PDF. That's something else in a document. Something else I can look up. I don't know. I have not been limited, and I've had several. I'll just say that. All right. So I need to, what am I looking up? What is Inc. and limit of authors in a document tracking changes? All right, got 2 there. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, Connie and Anthony and who else? Joan, thank you for submitting your questions. And I will do a little research on the 2 that I couldn't answer, and I'll actually send a follow-up email to everyone that's actually attending here today. So I just want to, here we go. When comparing documents, I know order matters. This is from David. When combining documents, does order matter? Oh, gosh, you guys are giving me some great questions. I can't think of an instance where it absolutely would, because you're seeing, when you're combining the 2, you're seeing every change tracked in there. But just like for comparing, you can swap the order when you're assigning them. So, or if the rule for you thinking that it does matter for the order for comparing, I probably use that same rule of thumb when combining, to be honest with you. So I always take my earliest version as my original, right? You want to think of it, you want to think of what your original is and what the revised. So my original is going to be my earliest version and my revised is going to be my latest. But if you're both revising at the same time, I would probably use my original as my document and the revised document as the document that the client was revising. That's probably how I would do that. Getting some great questions here. Any other questions? You're welcome, Joan. Thank you for attending. So again, just a reminder, please do take just a few minutes to complete that survey. Another great program. Oh, thank you, David. Well, these programs are developed just by some great feedback from you guys on other classes. I can't say I can create a class for everything that is recommended to me, especially if it's a program I don't have or use. But if it is a Word topic, you better believe I'm happy to look into creating a program. So, all right. I guess with that being said, we will call it a day, and I do appreciate all of you attending today. And if you have any questions that you come up with later on, feel free to send me an email at dbaker@affinity.com. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the afternoon.